It's been funny. This morning, a lot of people have come up to me and said, hey, good luck on today. I'm like, it's not really on me. I've got the easy job. This morning is all about the work and getting after it. We've talked about the last couple of days thinking inside a box, and we've tried to frame that around 4 key topic areas. This morning, we're going to address those 4 key topic areas. And what we're going to ask you to do as the leaders within this community is to take a little bit of time. There's 3 things I want you to think about. Number 1, reflect. Reflect on what you heard. Reflect on what you saw. Reflect on the impact that it had on you. Number 2, we're going to ask you to connect. You're going to be divided into round tables. And right now, in about 2 minutes, we're going to shift, we're going to adjust. Every single one of these tables needs to have 7 to 8 persons at the table. No more than that. There'll be a facilitator at each table to walk you through that. And so you're going to be reflecting, but we're going to ask you to connect to the folks that are at that table. Not going to do a mass facilitation and takeaway session, which can often lead to a throwaway session. What we really want to do is to hear from you. And the best ideas will come through your connection with each other. And the third thing I want to challenge you with within that is to project. So what are we going to do with what we've heard, with what we've learned? We've got to project the impact that it's going to have on the Lexington community. Now, I often talk to coaches or leaders, ask them about their legacy. And some very humble folks will tell me, Jason, I don't want to talk about legacy. I'm not leaving a legacy. I'm like, that's where you're wrong. Every single one of us will leave a legacy. Whether you like that or not, whether you're comfortable with that word, you will leave a legacy. And for us, the legacy that we create today will become the reality for our children tomorrow. So the time that we're going to spend, the hour and a half, it's going to go like that. A 20-minute session will go like that. I want to ask you to really engage, to participate in the next hour and a half, and then we'll have about a 15-minute break, and we'll come back and share some of the key takeaways. But that hour and a half is critical. And here's what we're going to do. Number 1, I'm going to ask you to relocate and then stay seated. You won't move. You'll stay at the table. And again, there's tables now with about 9 to 10 per. Please spread out. And for those of you that know each other well, and you're sitting next to that person, or maybe it's Steve Hillemeyer next to his 2 boys, spread out. Spread out. Don't sit next to your best friend. Don't sit with the people you're most comfortable with, that you already agree with. Sit with a group that you don't know as well, because we need differing views and thoughts and opinions. You'll be given 3 minutes at the beginning of each rotation. 3 minutes to think individually. If you turn in the facilitator book, or I should say the guidebook, there is a page for this takeaway session. If you did not bring your book, there are extra sheets at the table. It looks just like this, it's just a little bigger. And at the beginning of each 20-minute rotation, you'll get 3 minutes. During those 3 minutes, want to hear directly from you. No one else, but you. Specifically, how would you answer those questions? And the questions are there for you, and the questions are broken down by topic area. So 3 minutes to get some of your own points down. It can be bullet points, can be right. Some of you have already been doing this. Appreciate that. And in that case, you may already have your notes, you've already come, you're prepared. That's awesome. Sandy's been waiting 2 days for this. She's ready. She's ready. 20 minutes per session, okay? I'm going to give you a 2-minute warning. So when there's 2 minutes left, I'll get on the mic, hey, 2 minutes, just to give you a quick warning to kind of wrap it up. Facilitators, your biggest challenge is going to be getting through the questions. Because it's going to be easy, people start engaging, you could spend probably 20 minutes on the first part of that topic. So try to keep it moving, try to get through the entire topic. And then at the very end, if you look on the back of this, you're going to see a focus area for 2016. Very important. With the time left over at your table discussions, write down 2 things that you feel are important focus areas for a community in the coming year. Very important question. Very important question. So that's the last thing that we're going to take some time before we adjourn and comment on. When you finish that, you'll put your sheets in the blue boxes. Every table has a blue box. You'll drop that in there, and then again, we'll take a 15-minute break. I'll get with the facilitators. We're going to pull about 5 to 6 bullet points, takeaways for each topic, and then we'll come back and share those. Okay? So 2 minutes right now. Don't, please, all the folks in the back, people that are eating, please spread out, get to a table, and we'll get started in 2 minutes. Facilitators, if you'll go move to your tables now, appreciate it. So here's what I need you guys to do. Before you leave the table, everyone listen up, all facilitators, before you leave the table, please take a minute to fill out the last question on that sheet. So whether you've been doing it in your book and you're going to pull it out, or you filled out a sheet there at the table, the last question asks you about specific topic areas for 2016. If you would complete that, the last thing we want you to complete, place that in the blue box before you take a break. And number 2, facilitators, you need to grab those blue boxes and your notes from the sessions, and we're going to meet in the salon room where the luggage is right next door. Okay? Right next door, facilitators. Yeah. It's a good point. If you want to keep your ideas, take a picture. Capture it, but we really want to take those with us so we can consolidate that as a group and the collective wisdom that's been brought forth. Hey, I want to thank all of you guys today. The discussion as I walked around was incredible. Okay? Take 15 minutes. Is that right? Where's Linda? I'd say take about 12 minutes and then come back into this room. Okay? And then the facilitators, if you guys will come over there with me, we're going to spend a few minutes and put some thoughts together, and we'll be back in as a group. Let's go ahead and get started as folks come back in from the restroom. Just find a seat, and we've got the mayor of Kansas City that's going to talk to us in just a couple minutes. So let me go through a couple of takeaways from this morning's session. Hey, listen up, guys. They don't want me to whistle, do they? I know it. I'm about ready to give that out, CB. I'm trying not to turn into that. All right, hey, listen up. First off, I want to thank Katie, Linda, and all the planning team that took time to do this. We started as a group about 6 weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, actually, the first meeting. And then we brought in the facilitators. So to all the facilitators that rotated around, thank you so much for your guys' participation. What you guys didn't see was in the weeks leading up to this, they gave of their time. Just like Kansas City talked about the need of people jumping in and getting involved. They came to Commerce Lexington. We met. We discussed what we were doing. They prepared. They thought through the right questions. And so thanks to everyone that was involved in that process. Phenomenal engagement this morning. And the hardest part of what we did was just trying to boil it down to 4 or 5 bullet points in about 10 minutes. All right, that was very, very difficult. Please know that we didn't capture everything, but we tried to capture some highlights of some things, one slide of some routine themes that were heard at the tables. And we're going to cover those quickly. What I want you to realize, though, is there's a whole lot more work that will go on when we get back to Lexington. And we appreciate all the individual sheets that you filled out, because there's a lot of thought, effort, and that stuff will all be looked at and studied, and we'll see how that comes to pass over the next several years. For education entrepreneurism, and for those facilitators, if I missed something, you want to make a key point, raise your hand. Again, we're going to keep this moving fairly quickly so we can get to the mayor. But number one, an ecosystem is essential. It must be refined, coordinated, and connected. And right now, it seems like there's a lack of that ecosystem that truly exists. We don't have those resources tied together that can pull from one another. We saw a lot of great examples of that in our first day here with the entrepreneurism panel, and how that even connected and followed to the next day. I think the best example of that, what I loved, was when Greg told the story about, hey, there was this young man who was treating my daughter, and for every session I'd spend an hour going over his business plan. And that guy's now one of the most successful business leaders and entrepreneurs in Kansas City. And it's because one guy took the time and really started to mirror and build that ecosystem. Number two, must bring business and education leaders together in a specific forum. We've got to create synergy to identify and answer needs. That forum right now, according to the facilitators, really doesn't exist. And it has to be clearly identified and created in a more formal fashion. Number three, celebrate existing successes and market those accordingly. If we do that properly, we've got some great stories out there. Have some wins. If we can market those, it will help build momentum and share examples of what we can do. Number four, engage leadership to mentor, lift up, and promote new opportunities, kind of back to that the story that I shared. And number five, find ways to generate capital. That came up at a lot of tables. We just don't have the existing sources, nor is there the organization if we have young companies, young startups that need some capital. We heard Kansas City even fighting through some of that as well, so that's that's going to be a challenge, but that was one that routinely came up. Facilitators, anything else that you'd like to add to this, please? Anything at all? From education, entrepreneurism. Going once, going twice. Okay, the Big Five. Big Five. These guys did a great job of boiling down this to really small, specific bullet points packed with a lot of meaning. Number one, refuse to let politics get in the way. Refuse to let politics get in the way. Number two, focus on the solutions. Make sure you have a thing. And as I walked around to the tables, occasionally I would hear that. I would hear frustration with something, but frustration is not a solution. And so being able to identify a specific act or a thing, something we can put in place to solve an existing problem or challenge, is very, very important. So when we think about whatever Big Five, Big Three, there's some talks about what's the right number. Maybe it's not a number, maybe it's just identifying those key issues. Very important to make sure that we're keeping it to a solution, a thing. Number three, be inclusive. Go to the people. We heard that here in Kansas City, how they did that, and it came out. I'll tell you one thing today that taught me is when you guys get engaged, it's awesome to watch. The power of people working together and engaging. And they somehow harnessed that, got out in the communities, took the message to the people, and then received information from the people. So be inclusive. Number four, lead. Lead. Sounds simple. Sounds simple, but it requires a sacrifice of energy and a sacrifice of effort. And when so many of you are also engaged in a full-time job, and it goes above and beyond the hours that you're investing in that, to then go serve on a weekend, or to be involved with a team or a committee or an initiative, it's going to require true leadership, a sacrifice of energy and effort. And then lastly, choose the right champions. Choose the right champions. And that was a big one. And I liked how their champions, again, their champions came from the community leadership. And somebody took it. So I've got it. I'll own it. So we've got to make sure we've identified some of those good champions. Ronnie, anything else from facilitators for Big Five? Good. Regionalism. Regionalism. Need to define and brand the region. Who are we? What is our brand? Have we really taken time to define that? Apparently that came out as one of the key points and takeaways. Number 2, building trust, the essential ingredient. There's a lot of good engagement on this topic of trust. One of the points that they made also over the last couple of days, without trust, it doesn't matter what great initiatives you have. They don't trust one another. And I think the trust is going to require the senior leadership to be involved. Politically, business. And the only way you do that is through relationships. Face to face, people to people. Can't send a representative. At time the senior leader is going to have to come in and get involved in those conversations. Need a regional chamber. Good idea. Okay. Need to overcome, this is their point, not mine. Bluegrass Area Development District fiasco. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And then number 4, we need to take, 5, need to take politics out of this. We're more regionally connected in an economic fashion rather than politically, which is big. I heard Mr. Deaton talking in the back there, and he was talking about, hey, I don't need this company to necessarily bank with me, because all the money that's pouring into the community, I'm going to get my share. I thought that was great. I'm going to get mine. We're going to get ours. Central's going to get ours, and it may not be the company that banks with us, but there's thousands of employees that work there, and a lot of them live in Lexington, and a lot of them are going to bank with us, and they're going to buy products and things from people that bank with us. So that economic connection really has to be emphasized and taken advantage of. And then lastly, and anything from that group, I'm sorry, anybody else? Facilitators? Great job boiling these down. And then the last one, a case for diversity. So the number 1 point, need to increase diversity in our city. May seem like a no duh, but what does that mean? We need to increase it also on the Commerce Lexington, within Commerce Lexington, and on our nonprofit boards. And one thing that they really were talking about there was board development and selection. Diverse candidates. How do we promote that? How do we educate? And how do we identify some of those key candidates that are out there? Number 2, need a champion to connect with resources to mobilize. One of the points or the thoughts out of a couple of the discussions was a Commerce Lexington Director of Diversity, and whether that becomes a champion or is there another champion, but having a champion for this area. Number 3, get them young. Coordination and recruitment, and there's obviously an education point with this. So making sure that we're educating folks, young folks in the community about the importance of this, what this really means, and why it's important. And then intentionality is essential. Going about this in an intentional manner. Sandy.
Clarification on point 1, it's city boards and commissions that need to be diverse, not just our city.
Thank you. Good. Anything else for diversity?
Well, I think to get him young, it wasn't just educating about diversity, it was the academic education gap and how we need to start at pre-K.
Good. Great. Great. And if you didn't hear, starting in pre-K in the education system, start them very young that way too. Good. Okay. Any other points? Again, I want to thank you guys for engaging. It was awesome watching you go at it. People stayed engaged and stayed at the tables. It's never easy to do a takeaway session like this, and I'm excited about the information we received and how we're going to use that moving forward. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Bob Quick. Yes. Yes, sir.
More of an observation. So they talked about their Big 5 exercise, and they talked about how when they asked for ideas, what they got were, what we need to do is, the problem we have is, what we need to do is, and really the next step here. I didn't see any tangible ideas come out of this.
Yeah.
Just a lot more of the list of what we need to do. So a good follow-on might be to try to turn some of these things into actual doable ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was one of the groups that said, hey, stick to, for the Big 5, stick to the things, like solutions. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, thanks for allowing me to engage, and thank you. Appreciate all the help from everyone. Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you.